All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Tonight we have Cyclops going to be doing a talk on cloud security. Cyclops, feel free to take it away.
Hey everyone, I'm Cyclops. My real name is Steven. Feel free to hit me up at DC858 or IVU if you ever see me over there. Just some quick intro about me. So my hobbies: programming, chess, jiu-jitsu, some of the typical things. Graduated just about a couple years ago, minored in cybersecurity, and my current position is a cybersecurity engineer. And some of my responsibilities are cloud security, endpoint security, DevSecOps, and AI security. And some of my previous roles were just doing some web development and just random jobs before that. But yeah, can go ahead and get started. Hopefully, some of the things that you would learn from today are just the basics of cloud and how to secure cloud environments using the industry, right, like the tools you would see in industry. Some things that are low cost, free educational resources that are provided for if you have a student email. A lot of this is aimed at that. Some intro to DevSecOps and just some of the ways that I think that AI is impacting the way that we do cloud security and just security in general. So just a basic intro on cloud versus on-premise. Oh, also feel free to stop me at any point during the presentation. I'll try to remember to stop, but feel free to jump in if you have any questions. So some of the reasons why you would use cloud, some of the traditional methodologies and mindset you would say for an organization would be to plan for a specific amount of overhead. Like you want to plan for a certain amount of compute and RAM and storage, but cloud really shifts that mentality. It's more of an elastic model where you're kind of paying as you go, as opposed to, hey, I need to spin up a server that has this amount of resources and we have to plan for that amount of capacity. Some of the trade-offs you have to be mindful of. In the on-prem world, you are responsible for all 7 layers of the OSI model, and that includes like this physical security of like your data center, for example. The trade-off in cloud is that you're no longer responsible for the physical security of the data center, but also you no longer have access to OSI layers, basically 1 through 3. But some of the benefits of cloud would be that you can rapidly deploy new services in minutes, even as opposed to having to bring up a server for a specific use case. Another advantage of cloud would be that it has a much higher scalability in terms of it has global reach, and you can deploy things in different regions across the world, as opposed to if you're maybe in an on-prem situation, you can deploy in certain regions, and AWS and a lot of these cloud providers have much greater reach than many companies could afford for themselves. Additionally, you can have cost efficiency gains, whereas you're only paying as you go, like I said, as opposed to having to spin up a server for a specific use case. In the cloud, it's a lot easier to take advantage of the more cutting edge technology. Specifically, recently, there's been things like AWS Bedrock, which allows you to run and train and cloud models or AI models in the cloud, as opposed to having those resources in your local machine or your local data center. And you also have access to some of AWS's expertise, depending on how much you pay within that cloud model. Additionally, resilience is another benefit where you have you have the potential for much higher redundancy because you have all of the regions that you can deploy to. any questions so far on maybe why you would use or deploy an application in the cloud versus on-prem? Cool. Some of the big three are AWS, Azure, and GCP. AWS has arguably pioneered a lot of the cloud computing model, and it has one of the broadest service range. And yeah, it's typically used at large corporations. Azure, in a lot of ways, it's kind of hard to get away from Azure because a lot of large corporations also use Microsoft, and Azure integrates very well with Microsoft's products and services, and yeah, it gives you a lot of kind of hybrid cloud capabilities between on-prem and in cloud, for example. GCP you might more commonly see in a startup environment, and GCP has its own strengths as well. But each has their own security framework, and their implementation to those security frameworks vary. But in some sense, you do have to have somewhat specialized knowledge for each platform. But that's not to say that one thing can't be done in the other platform. But yeah, it's kind of a little bit like a different language and a different interface between all these different cloud providers. So I tried to create like a little acronym just to remember, because one of the initial things that I heard when I was kind of first getting into the industry was cloud first. Everyone was saying, "Oh, we got to do cloud first development," and I kind of made this acronym more to say cloud smart, because not to say that I'm not advocating for cloud or on-prem either way, but I would say that with this acronym, you should definitely analyze the situation at hand before you decide whether to deploy in the cloud or on premises. It's kind of dependent on the needs and uses of your organization or your specific project. So first, you want to make sure it's secure, and you want to consider the security of, maybe you don't want to physically have to secure your data center, and you want that responsibility shifted to a cloud provider, for example. You want to make sure that the service is going to be manageable. Does the cloud offer you a better automation situation? Does it offer better scalability for your use case? Those are some of the questions that you might ask. You want your service to be, do you want your service to be available, redundant? Sometimes cloud providers offer global distribution, but maybe you have a more mission critical or maybe an internal application, for example, that might require some on-premise resource. That might be something you would think about. Cloud can be resource efficient, like I've hit on. You can pay as you go or pay as only what you use, but in certain cases, on-premise might be more cost efficient than an inefficient cloud deployment, because that's a problem that I've seen somewhat often, is that if an application team makes a deployment in the cloud that maybe is trying to replicate something that is living on premises, and they do kind of just like a one-to-one replication of that service, sometimes that can cost you more in the cloud than continuing to keep running that service on premise. So there's that consideration to make, is the efficiency of the deployment that you're making in the cloud. You want to make sure that the services that you're deploying are architected in a pay-as-you-go model rather than the on-premises mindset. And finally, is the technology fit. Does the cloud provide you the most cutting edge thing that you need? In some cases, you may only be able to deploy the most cutting edge on your local machine, for example. But and a cloud provider may not support that. I've run into that issue somewhat in the past. It's somewhat less common now, but for example, if a AWS service doesn't support like a certain version of Node or Python or something like that, then that would be a problem for your deployment. So that could be something to consider as well. So that's kind of just my acronym. Some people may have come up with an acronym before, but yeah, this is mine. Cloud security models is something to consider as well when making a cloud deployment, as you really want to consider what you are responsible for and what AWS is responsible for. Like we mentioned with the physical security of the data center, AWS is responsible. A lot of times people say AWS is responsible for the cloud itself, for the cloud infrastructure, and you're responsible for everything that you put in the cloud. So that's an important distinction to make, is that AWS is not responsible for the security misconfigurations that you make in the cloud. So just an important legal consideration, and all of the cloud providers have similar strengths and industry-specific compliance requirements in terms of HIPAA and all of that. And yeah, they just have a little bit somewhat different names for kind of the same things when it comes to identity and access management. Might be called Azure Active Directory versus Google Cloud Identity Access Management, and similar thing for logging and monitoring capabilities. Any questions? Cool. An important concept that I've been to familiarize myself with over the past couple of years is infrastructure as code, and this is the ability to deploy resources in the cloud without having to kind of poke around within the console of Google Cloud or Azure or AWS. So it allows you to apply the programming concepts that you're already familiar with to cloud deployments. It also allows you to have consistent and reproducible deployments. It allows you to have things like version control. You can upload these kinds of files to GitHub, and then additionally, there's kind of the concept of Terraform state, which is somewhat similar in the sense that it's making a comparison against the resources that already exist in the cloud. Yeah, some of the key tools that are out on the market right now in terms of infrastructure as code is Terraform. AWS and Azure and Google Cloud all have their own specific languages for deploying infrastructure as code, and there's a couple other players out on the market right now, is Pulumi and OpenTofu. Pulumi is multi-language and also open source. OpenTofu is it's a fork of Terraform with somewhat of a better license structure, and it's supported by the Linux Foundation. And yeah, like I said, you can apply the programming concepts So an example, I got a couple examples of just what maybe some infrastructure as code might look like. And yeah. And some of these resources are, I would say, each of these cloud providers wants students to take advantage of the resources that they have available to them, because I would make the argument that they probably want them to use those cloud providers in their future positions. And unfortunately, when I was in college, learning cloud concepts wasn't really an emphasized concept in a lot of the classes that I was in. So the only way that you would really get any exposure to this is if you kind of went out of your way to find some projects or needs use cases for that kind of thing. So definitely a big advocate of taking advantage of the free resources that are provided to you while you have a student email address. And yeah, AWS has some free courses that they offer. They also have a job board. Additionally, they have a free tier, which you can choose to have 12-month access or always free services like Lambda. They also have their AWS Academy and AWS well-architected labs. Also, for all of these slides, I have like links and resources attached in the speaker notes for everything that I mentioned. So yeah, be sure to check those out if you're interested in seeing any of these resources. But yeah, they also give you access to things like CloudTrail and Guard Duty for if you're maybe going to practice what it might look like to look at some logs that your applications are spitting out. Additionally, I have some resources for Azure. They have Azure for Students, which gives you $100 of credit and services for developer tools. The one cool thing about Microsoft and Azure is that, to my knowledge, a lot of the Azure like learning courses are free to like just kind of click through and take the course and learn according to Microsoft. The main cost is kind of comes when you start to take the certifications. So that's one beneficial thing about Azure. Additionally, there's some similar Sentinel limited capabilities, and then yeah, you get just some secure DevOps practices with Azure DevOps. There's lots of resources provided on GitHub for a lot of that kind of DevOps mentality. And Google, additionally, I don't personally have as much experience with Google, so I can't speak from experience, but they also additionally offer some readiness programs. I've been checking out a lot of their services in regards to quick labs recently. They have just some free hands-on things for students. They also have a free tier similar to the other platforms, and you also get access to the Security Command Center standard tier for free, just as I think as a regular user. So definitely take advantage of those things that are provided to you while you have access to the student email address. The last one that I kind of have on this list is the GitHub Student Developer Pack. I always tell all the students that I've interacted with recently is to take advantage of this, is because you get GitHub Pro for free, which means that you also get the GitHub Copilot with the GitHub Copilot Pro access for free. You get certain actions minutes, and also for free you get GitHub Advanced Security on public repos, which basically includes security scans of your code that you can set up, and so you can practice what that might look like. They give you some resources for websites and different IDEs and all of that kind of stuff. So definitely take advantage of this as well. One recent or one feature that I've been interacting with recently that I thought is pretty cool is GitHub Copilot for Security, and it allows developers to kind of not have to, or sorry, it allows developers to be able to remediate security issues if they're detected by something like GitHub Advanced Security. So if GitHub Advanced Security has a recommendation for an unsanitized SQL injection, for example, then GitHub Copilot for Security would recommend the fix for that with the sanitization of that. So lots of cool features coming with AI in the future. But one caveat is definitely always review any AI generated code. One recent term that I've kind of just been introduced to is, I guess, DevSecOps and that history in general. So I'm still learning, but the basic concept is that we really want to integrate security earlier on and kind of throughout the build process, like throughout the development cycle, because if you don't consider those security implications, then you're just kind of creating a lot of technological debt for yourself and security issues that you'll have to fix in the future. So you really want to set up the infrastructure for your code to be able to deploy that in an efficient manner and in a secure manner as well. So and have the ability to kind of move quickly and make deployments quickly. And the cloud is well suited for a lot of these DevSecOps practices. So yeah, the goal is basically for security teams to transition from being a gatekeeper to enabling application teams with a platform and giving them security guardrails on that platform, but also kind of having some things that make it easier and automated for them to kind of push code and deploy that same code. So, any questions on DevSecOps? Another just general concept within some of these platforms like GitHub would be orchestration, and that's kind of the action of orchestrating your code deployments to a specific environment. Maybe your code lives in GitHub and you're trying to deploy that in AWS. Something like GitHub Actions or Octopus, or somewhat traditionally Jenkins would allow you to deploy that kind of infrastructure in the cloud. And some of the advantages is it just allows you to have consistent deployments and applications of your security controls, and additionally you can have steps throughout that orchestration process that might stop the build or halt the build if there's some kind of misconfiguration. Cloud security is different than somewhat different than traditional security in that you have to understand each cloud provider's shared responsibility model and understand what you are responsible for versus the provider, and identity and access management primarily becomes one of the main regulators of security in terms of you'll be configuring users and roles and policies to have access to specific cloud resources, and that kind of becomes your perimeter, rather maybe than some of your like physical security perimeter. API-based security controls might replace some manual configurations that you might have to do in terms of maybe spinning up a new server, and now you can spin up a new server with an API call. So that's a key advantage of being in the cloud. One thing that's different that you might have to consider is that data protection is much different. Instead of having your data in your data center on your hard drives, it's potentially accessible from anywhere in the world if it's misconfigured. So definitely have to make sure that S3 buckets are private, for example, but a lot of cloud providers are somewhat secure by default these days, but you definitely have to, you are responsible for everything that you put in the cloud. Compliance and government or governance requirements expand with now global reach. That's kind of another security consideration with kind of the large reach of your data. If you're deploying in a different region, that might have different data protection restrictions. So you definitely have to look out and consider those things. Some tools that might help monitor your cloud environments. The typical acronyms you'll hear are CSPM and CNAP. I apologize, it's a little bit cut off, but yeah, Cloud Security Posture Management and Cloud Native Application Protection Platform. Wiz, which is a tool that recently just got bought by Google, is a CSPM CNAP tool, and it allows you to see misconfigurations in your cloud environment It might help you compare your cloud against common benchmarks like the CIS benchmarks. It helps you do some risk assessments and prioritizations based on maybe you might label a certain instance to have a high criticality. Additionally, you might be able to automate some of the remediation or the reporting of your security issues and vulnerabilities. Additionally, it allows you to see kind of the attack path of what could be wrong. Let's say you have a key that's exposed. It might give you the breakdown of how that key can be used to affect certain resources, and it will kind of draw out that map for you. Some other tools might include just the Prisma Cloud, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Orca Security has tools, and a lot of cloud providers also have somewhat native tools for detecting misconfigurations within your environment for a price. So keep moving on. Any questions on Wiz or CSPM, CNAP? In my personal opinion, AI is definitely transforming the way that we approach cloud security and basically everything else. So traditionally, AI, the quote-unquote AI, has always been used for things like anomaly detection and detecting unusual behaviors or threat hunting with massive data. But some of the potential future use cases that I could pretty easily see would be maybe some more automated incident responses using like somewhat of a agents and more of an automation framework. But yeah, AI helps security teams. It has traditionally helped security teams, and I believe it will continue to help security teams handle the complexity of both on-premise and cloud environments, and hopefully it would help us tune out some of the noise and give us better prioritization of our tasks. Additionally, I would say that, yeah, it just generally enables security automation in terms of future potential use cases. And I mean, these tools are being built, and they are built right now, as like natural language processing, chatbots potentially to like interact with your security tooling. That's some of the things that I'm starting to see within the tools that I use is basically a chatbot interface or an AI interface that allows you to interact with the platform itself, or might give you advice on the platform. And those kind of chatbots are more directly trained on the documentation of that platform. So typically they're somewhat decent at providing you those answers. One example would be like Amazon Q, which is a recent service that has come out that is a chatbot that helps you kind of learn a little bit more about the cloud. And you can actually even ask it about like questions about your currently deployed resources and how to fix those things, or what might be the best practice. So definitely see a lot of potential in the future for that, for just learning in general. And yeah, some of the potential drawbacks, though, I think that for every good thing, there's probably also going to be a drawback in terms of new threats and things that we didn't really expect. I think last week's speaker hit on some of those threat vectors. And additionally, there's always kind of the chance of false positives, but false positives exist in the tools that we already use, so that's not really anything new. But we definitely have to be mindful of things like hallucinations and that kind of new drawback. So I would make the argument that ultimately, yes, some of these things do boil down to like hard rules within your security configurations, but I would make the argument that security teams are moving from like writing static rules to maybe training an AI, a more dynamic AI system that can adapt to these new evolving threats that we're starting to observe. Lastly, I think just to kind of close, I think just some tips of the things that I've learned over the past couple of years of how to build a career in cloud security, or a little bit more security in general, but start with the fundamental security concepts and the basics of cloud. Definitely make sure that you're aware of the cloud security model of the platform that you'll be interacting with. Um, Build practical experience using the free stuff that's available to you. Use the AWS free tier, all of the free stuff that's given, and it, on top of that, if you once you feel ready or have enough experience, have studied, uh, would recommend potentially taking some AWS certification tests or Azure certification. There's Roadmap and others in this Discord have talked a lot about um, how to best approach those certifications. I'm working on a lot of those myself right now. So um, another a potential idea for just your own experience would be to build a security home lab. That might be in your house on a laptop, or it might be in the cloud on some of the free resources that are given to you. Whichever one it is, hands-on experience and has always benefited me a lot more than just kind of uh, studying a book personally. And usually that kind of comes from maybe a project that you want to build that forces you to learn how to solve a specific problem. So you guys are already kind of doing this step, but join local groups and communities. Um, some of the ones that I've mentioned, IVU and DCA 58 are the local groups for DEF CON. Those are some people that have definitely helped me boost my career in the past couple years, and just being a part of this group has helped me. But yeah, networking with security professionals kind of comes alongside with that kind of thing, and can't recommend the CTFs and the conferences enough. That's always good hands-on, and I feel like a skill that's a little bit uh, under appreciated, at least when I was in college, or not talked about, was just communication skills and being able to explain concepts in security to your peers. So I'll use that myself right now. And yeah, just conclude. One tip that I have before I finish up is something I always Google awesome, insert topic there, GitHub, and you can always pretty much find like a good set of resources on that kind of thing. It's kind of like the tip where you add Reddit to the end of your Google search. So uh, if you haven't done that, definitely check out some of the things that you're interested with that Google search. And yeah, just to conclude, cloud security requires understanding both cloud services and just basic security principles. There's lots of free resources out there for students, and like I said earlier, cloud providers are somewhat incentivized, in my opinion, to kind of get you familiar with their platforms so that you'll use that in your future position. Uh, Infrastructure as code is a great way to enable reproducible security by design. And one of the great things is you can kind of scan a lot of your code before it even gets deployed. So just like regular SaaS scanning, your infrastructure can be scanned before it even gets deployed. So there's a lot of advantages that come from having your infrastructure be deployed programmatically and as code. Um, DevSecOps is kind of the goal to integrate security earlier on in the development life cycle. And this is a key benefit because, or a key benefit of this is not having as much tech debt kind of later down the line when you might have to kind of fix those security problems that you ignored earlier on in the development life cycle. And lastly, I think the AI and automation are transforming the way that we approach cloud security in general, and there will be new threats, but additionally, there's going to be new tools to kind of help us combat those threats. So it's beneficial to become familiar with those kind of AI tools to help combat those things. And yeah, this is just a schedule of some upcoming events besides San Diego, DEF CON 2025. And yeah, some of these groups, DC 858, Irvine Underground, but that's pretty much all I had. I'll drop my LinkedIn in the chat as well. But if you have any questions, we can kind of open it up.